Welcome everybody to Labor Forward, School for Workers monthly live stream broadcast. Uh, Today, our guest is Doug Thompson, who works at Colectivo Coffee. Doug, thanks for joining us today.
Well, I'm happy to be here and excited to talk to you this afternoon.
Yeah, we're excited too. Well, let's just start off with something really basic. Obviously, we know you work at Colectivo, but what do you do for them and where?
I'm a baker, so I'm the mixer. I start the day before anyone comes in, before any of the crew comes in. I'm there with the numbers to turn numbers of muffins into pounds of muffins, and then create that from flour, eggs, and sugar.
Ah,
And daily, this goes on, and my crew comes in sporadically as the mixes come. They come in and start getting ready to work and sending it out to our customers.
super.
I've been
And
doing this at Colectivo for almost 10 years, and I've been a baker since 1990. So if we do the math there, which we don't want to do, been at it a while.
It's a long time, yeah. It's a seasoned, experienced baker. And
Yep.
are you in the Milwaukee area, I assume?
I am. I'm in Cudahy, which is a suburb of the city of Milwaukee. We're just about 6 miles south of downtown Milwaukee.
Okay. All right. And in case folks in our audience aren't aware, when you think of a coffee chain, that you probably think of the stores where you can actually walk in and buy muffins and coffee, but Colectivo has a fair number of behind the scenes employees like yourself.
Yes, there are a group of at least 10 bakers with me during the day, and they're wonderful people to work with. I'm very happy to know them and enjoy their teamwork. So I'm happy
Okay.
to be there. You know?
Excellent. Well, speaking of teamwork, the building of a union is teamwork, right? Uh, and let's I would assume that most of the folks that are listening to us are at least somewhat aware of the story at Colectivo, but just for the sake of anyone who might not be completely aware, let's just really quickly recap. And I'll provide a little bit of the information, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. Colectivo is a small coffee chain with locations in Wisconsin and Illinois. I think I saw that they have about 600 or so employees.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that was the
and
count. Yeah.
you folks decided to organize, and you had a really close vote with the National Labor Relations Board, which the company then appealed over and over and over again. Um, and I guess a question I would have for you by way of recapping this past history briefly is, how did you folks hold things together and maintain momentum during this long dragged out process of getting the election certified?
Well, alcohol. There was that. um, we were determined. We were determined to see it through and make sure that this happened. I'm holding up a copy of our contract,
Nice. We're going to talk about that
and
soon.
and many things in life are worth the work, especially the good ones. I'm 56, getting close to my retirement time. When when I look back to the people that I work with, and I just told you how much I care about these people, I thought to myself how great it would be if when I left, this shop was unionized. It's been a dream of mine to work for a union shop my entire life, my entire adult career. As Reaganomics took hold in the United States and labor was pushed to the side, and we had Scott Walker. The importance of the labor union in my eyes was do or die. So when the opportunity arose, I had to get in. I had to get in. I mean, our location is less than a mile from Puddler's Hall, and Puddler's Hall is a famous union hall that was paramount to a terrible incident that happened in 1886, where 7 Wisconsinites were killed, asking merely for an 8-hour day. I live very close to that marker, and I go to that celebration or acknowledgement uh, when they happen, May 5th of 1886, and I was inspired, and I was very fortunate to have some of the VOCs were so dedicated to making this happen. I know that all of us felt like giving up at some point, but because we communicated with each other and we relied on each other for support, ideas, encouragement, um, this was going to happen, and we were going to make it happen if it broke us. So we got to work.
Nice. Excellent. Thank you. Yeah. You know, I do want to get to your contract negotiations, but one of my favorite stories from the organizing of Colectivo was the captive audience meeting that you were involved in. And if we have any folks on the line here who don't know what a captive audience meeting is, it's when an employer has a mandatory meeting, puts everybody in a room, and then either the employer or a hired consultant gives a speech or gives some sort of presentation to discourage or frighten the employees from unionizing. So you had an interesting experience with a captive audience meeting. I wonder if you'd share that story with folks.
Well, it was scheduled. Of course I laughed a little bit. I couldn't believe it was happening. It was mostly surprising that we were having any kind of fight at all, giving our name being Colectivo. I thought it was a PR nightmare. Well, nevertheless, when I heard we were going to have this captive meeting, I did a little research on the company that was going to be there, and I lined up a list of questions for him that I knew would befuddle him to no end. And I began, asking him questions about, who he works for, and he doesn't work for us, and a few other things, but I got him rattled. And it was the idea that I came in with the knowledge, and the others in the room with us didn't really even know what a union was. Mm-hmm. Didn't know that we were trying to form a union, because the management was trying to stop us from organizing. I mean, in small ways. But this fellow came, and he tried to convince me that somehow the union was going to be bad for us, and I just laid into him, and I told him, we're gonna set the bar here. If we become this organization, we're gonna be in good shape. And he did not like my combativeness. He was sweating a bit, and there was to be yet another meeting a couple days later, and I was supposed to be to that meeting too. So again, got my questions ready and got my research done, and went to work that morning. And the general manager said, "Doug, we don't want you to come to this meeting."
Of course.
And I said, that's just fine with me. I would rather be down here doing my craft and the work that I came to do, and not be participating in some kind of foolishness. I'm a pretty serious dude, and I just want to get my work done and go home. So yeah, thanks. I don't want to hang in your weird party upstairs.
Well, thank you for sharing that story. I often in organizing campaigns, what you did kind of on your own initiative there is something that the organizing committee will plan. We'll decide who's going to do that and who's going to challenge the consultant, and we'll work out the questions. And it's a good lesson for anybody who's listening to us today, that's a common thing that happens during captive audience meetings are incredibly common, and having some sort of challenge from the floor is a common way that workers deal with it. But it's probably less common that it's an individual like yourself who does the research and stands up to the consultant on their own. So I congratulate you on your bravery.
Well, I come from a pretty combative family. We've had some really interesting political discussions over the years. So I kind of know how to approach something like this. And I was not going to have it. So yeah, I was happy to do it. And I no regrets. I'd do it again. If he comes back, I'm there. You know.
You probably wouldn't be
And
invited again.
I'm also to understand that it might be outlawed now, and that might be have something to do with our fight and our struggle for a union, that they may not be able to have captive audiences and it may be outlawed. I'm hoping that that will come to fruition, although I haven't done the research on that one.
There are some moves in that direction, mainly at the state level. I could be
Mhm.
wrong. I think New York might be getting ready to pass legislation forbidding
Okay.
captive audience meetings. And I think there's some talk at the federal level at the National Labor Relations Board, but it's certainly something that's being talked about. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
let's get to the contract that you held up a moment ago.
Yeah.
Congratulations on that, by the way.
Thank you.
The organizing is a major accomplishment, and it's a big deal when workers organize a union. But a very large number of workers who organize unions never get a contract because of the fight that the employer continues to put up. Um, you folks experienced some of that fight during your negotiations, but you got to the finish line on that aspect of building your organization. And I guess this is a little similar to the question I asked you about the organizing process. How did you folks keep yourselves organized during the negotiations?
Well, the reality of it for the bakery end of it was I lost my entire bread crew 3 times.
Mm,
They quit. They we were understaffed, and their jobs were across the street. So it was very unfortunate that I had lost so much support in the bakery, and I had lengthy conversations with many of them, became good friends with them over the off time that we had, because we had to talk about this.
hmm
And eventually they were fired or pushed out. Many of our bench hands and pastry workers were, when it was discovered that they did support the union or they did support any kind of movement in this direction, they were handed so much work that that some of them would be in tears before they finally left. And there would be little power flexes from general management, small rule infractions that would be overlooked before all of a sudden were pointed out in front of the crew to humiliate someone. Or so it was a really difficult and awkward time between the organizing and the contract.
hmm
To In order to stay together, we had to find other ways to communicate. So I had to learn how to text. I had to learn how to send emails and carbon copy people. But I had to do it. There was just no other way we were gonna push it. So you have to adjust to whatever your situation is. And I was, again, fortunate to have the strength of the VOCs. They weren't gonna stop. And I know that when I would talk to them on the phone after work, some of them would be in tears, and I would be in tears, because it was so frustrating to that my livelihood was being threatened in any capacity, despite my work history
hmm
and dedication. It was mind blowing to me. But my community around me gave me the support that I needed, and that's really all it is. It's communicating. That's paramount, because if you go home and you just think about it and stew, you're not gonna get up tomorrow and fight. you're gonna get on the phone and you're gonna talk it out with your coworkers or your organizers, and you're gonna get back on the horse tomorrow and get it done. So that's how we did it. We talked to one another and supported one another over the time.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for that little snippet that I'm going to use in my future trainings, that if you just go home and stew, you're not going to get up and fight. That's, if it's okay with you, I'm going to start using that line with people.
I,
So
I'm here for you guys. We're gonna help others to organize too.
awesome. Awesome.
Okay.
That's great. I forgot what I was about to ask you. Uh, well, I was going to point out, at least to folks, that, you know, in a business like Colectivo, there are pieces of the business that experience high turnover anyway. You add on top of that all of these, you know, there were many allegations of pressure and retaliation, and people being kind of sideways fired for being involved in the union, and it made it so that you folks who, you know, who were still there kind of had to reorganize on a continuous basis as people left and new people came in.
Yeah, for that, the truth is we barely even got to know people's names sometimes as they would come through. But I would always make sure to go over the bench and talk to my workers, you know, on a at least once a week basis, you know, to see who's, you know, who's going to get on board with this. And, you know, everybody was, you know, the people that were the those who have been there with me a long time, they were there all, you know, through the whole thing. They're like, yeah, we got you. Don't worry about it, Doug. We're going to be here. But it was difficult with the newer folks because I had already done this. You know, I approached a group of gentlemen and ladies that I don't know, and, you know, put my heart on the bench and said, I need you to help me. And I had done it a couple of times, you know, and
Yeah.
it was being intimidated by the bosses, being almost to the point where they wouldn't look me in the eye in the morning. They would say good morning, but it was like it was ingenuine. And, you know, I didn't understand, especially since, you know, what we had just been through this pandemic. I mean, it was us, our bakery that kept the doors of the cafes open. Had there not been muffins and fresh bread and us pulling together as a unit, the doors wouldn't have been open, period. And I think that they knew that. So they didn't lay off of me, though. They didn't lay off of me. I had, when the pandemic hit, I had two mixers, two people doing my job, me and another, I had a partner. And now it's just me. It's just me. I'm mixing 1,500 pounds a day, and, you know, but I'm a happy union baker.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the fight was long, and it almost seems, I, to do this conversation with you, I had to go back into my Facebook page and what the heck was I doing back then? You know, what was even going on? You know, but you know, I found some key points that were where things started to shake up, and it finally did come to fruition. You know,
Mm.
yeah.
I'm curious, you know, when you folks organized for a long, it seemed like the company was never going to agree that you folks had successfully organized. And then once you got past that, it seemed like they were never going to agree to come to the table. And then once you got them to the table, it didn't seem like they were going to agree to a contract that was satisfactory to folks. But ultimately, you got there. And I'm curious if you can point to any one thing or concept or action that you folks took that got you over the finish line. Like, what actually eventually got the company to play nice or nicer? They maybe never played nice, but they ultimately signed a contract. So what got you there?
I think it was the amount of unfair labor practices alleged against them. And I think they realized that, you know, we were playing ball. They had to get in the game, or we were just going to keep knocking them out of the park.
Mm.
You know, and it was not discussed in our shop, not until well after the contract was signed. It wasn't even brought up that we were a union shop. Our third shifters had no idea unless I would come in and say, "Hey, this is a
Mm.
union shop. You guys signing up?" You know, and I would do that from time to time and here and there, but there was no discussion. And then one morning, he pulled the entire bakery together and acknowledged that this is a union shop and you guys can have breaks now. Of course,
Ooh,
of
that's
course,
that's
I
a big
couldn't.
win though, right? I shouldn't laugh. That's a it's
It,
it's so it's so basic that it made me laugh, and yet that's a huge win.
this this happened. This went on for 2 years.
Mm.
For 2 years, and it it was, again, it was astonishing that they didn't realize that their name is Colectivo. You can't be against the union. You I think that was a key element too for me, is that I disapprove of hypocrisy. And if your name is Colectivo, then that doesn't that mean union? I didn't
Mhm.
understand that.
Yeah.
And I didn't appreciate uh the forward facing progressiveness of the company. I know they do a lot of good things for our community, but what was going on behind the scenes was a lie. And I just couldn't have it. But by the day that they acknowledged this contract, you know, the general manager was standing right next to me, and that's when I said, well, and I kept chiming in, well, you just joined one of the greatest organizations in the history of mankind. Of course I was full of hyperbole and hoping to get some of the younger people excited about what was happening. Our The idea that we were going to get breaks, many were confused. They didn't know how to take a break. Really,
Yeah.
they because
Yeah.
they just stayed at their machine, or stayed at the behest of the manager. We would send them to lunch, an unpaid lunch, but having a paid break, that's unheard of. Some of them goes, I don't want to take a break. I want to go home. Well, you still got to take care of yourself here.
Right.
This is the long game. You want to do this for 40 years? You should maybe take a break. Take it easy for a second. It's not world peace. It's just stew. Yeah, it's just bakery. So,
We talk about the breaks. Was there some another thing or two in the contract that were like resolved major issues for the folks that you work with?
I wouldn't say for us.
No.
There were many, but um, the idea that we were going to uh, you know have to change the way we operated in order to accommodate each other. And I think there was a pulling together of people at that point, where we said, okay, we're not really sure what we have here. We don't really know what we're doing. And so our infancy was acknowledged amongst us. And I think that some of us got to say to themselves, how do I get involved now? What do I got to do? When are we going to meet with the union? What is our responsibility now?
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me, I'm an elder person at work. So as an elder person at work, I want to set the example of how we operate, and how we not only treat one another, but how we get through the day with good communication, and being thorough in our job. And I think that will I think this will help our newer employees as we learn how to work within a contract. It's most of us never have never had a contract and don't really understand that this is legally binding, that these things must happen on a daily basis. And we have rights as workers. We're not essential workers, you know, we're not expendable workers. We're human beings that have families that want us to check in. So let's take a break. It's okay, you know.
Well said. Thank you. So what's next for you folks?
Oh, geez. Well, I was very excited to march to Labor Fest this year with the IBEW. This is second year. I went last year too, but this year I was marching right next to Senator Baldwin. She was wearing our shirts, and I was marching behind Governor Evers, also wearing our shirts. I was just I was one of the proudest men in that line. I don't think that anything ever felt like this kind of a win. And it's time for the pendulum to come back the other way. You know, it really is. I think we all want, you know, the same things. You know, we want dignity in our jobs. We want to go home and be okay and not hurt inside or out, you know, by some dig that we might get. Now we have some recourse. We can complain. I think the next step forward is membership drives. I think that's the next thing, and selecting our stewards. This is all very exciting and new to all of us, including myself. You know, as supportive as I am of this movement, I still need to educate myself even further to do the best I can, so that when I retire, this organization and our collective is strong, as strong as the coffee we sell and as delicious as the muffins I bake in the morning.
Sorry, that took me by surprise. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
And maybe you addressed this in some way in the comments that you just made, but what do you think other workers who don't yet have a union, who have their eye on Colectivo, what should they take away from what you folks have accomplished, do you think?
Endurance. Get ready. Pack a lunch. Okay, because it's going to take a bit, and you're going to have to do some hours after work. You're going to have to do some organizing after work. You're going to have to get in your car, and you're going to have to drive to other locations or wherever your other employees are, because you're not gonna win a fight if you don't get up. And it's very important to start on you know, a strong footing and stay there. Don't let up. Don't and to communicate with everyone, as many of those in your workplace as you possibly can, eye to eye. You got to talk to them that you like, you know, it's important that you're there speaking right to them, because it becomes real. When it's click online, it's not as real. So if you can speak directly to each individual, you know, as you go through the organizing process, you know, learn their names. You know, that's so many of us work with people we don't even know their names,
right?
You know, but it really helps. It really helps to know that what you're in for, and that by the end, you'll have one of these.
There it is.
Contract. I had
There's
to
the
show
trophy.
it again. Very proud.
Well, thank you. I think that advice will be helpful to folks that get to hear it. Well, we're at about 12:30, Doug. So I
Okay.
think I'm going to thank you for joining me in this conversation today. Before we
Okay.
go, I'll come back again and thank you again. But I just want to let folks know what we have coming up on Labor Forward. Next month, we're going to feature Andrew Hutchinson, who's a public sector union rep for LiUNA Local 955 in Missouri. Recently, they ratified a new contract with the city of Columbia, Missouri, and the contract holds the potential to bring about really substantial improvements in benefits and working conditions. So tune in to hear not only what they achieved, but how they achieved it. And that's going to be October 18th at noon Central Time. And then the following month on November 15th, our guest will be Kyla, and I don't know if I'm going to get her last name right, Engelke or something like that. And I apologize if she's listening. She's a business agent from the Plasterers and Cement Masons, Local 599. She's also Secretary Treasurer of the Milwaukee Building and Construction Trades Council. And she's a board member for Empower, an organization that was created to normalize the role of women in construction, to support and retain women that are already in the industry, and to recruit more women into union construction careers. Kyla will talk about the growth of Empower and their mentoring project and how they're creating positive change. And that will be November 15th at noon Central. So with that, again, Doug, thank you so much. I really enjoyed our conversation. And
Me as
I
well,
think
yes.
I took away some things that I'm going to use, and I'm sure other folks did as well.
Okay, well, good luck to all of you. And if there's any way I can help in the future, you go ahead and give me
Oh,
a call.
I'm sorry. Before I let you go, Doug, I forgot to ask if we had any questions from the audience. Uh, and I see there's a comment that someone in the chat, Pam from Milwaukee, said great interview. But if we can stay for a minute or two and see if anybody in our crowd has a question. Sorry, I almost forgot to do this, but I don't see any leaping ahead. I'll give it just a moment in case somebody's furiously typing one right now. Okay, well, certainly if anyone isn't quite finished typing, or if you have think of a question 10 minutes later, which is usually how I operate, I always think of things later. Feel free to shoot us an email and we'll get the question to Doug or whoever needs to answer it for you. So now I will say thank you so much, Doug. I have really enjoyed this, and maybe we'll have you back on when you guys get your second contract, and then
Well,
you can hold that up and show everybody.
I'll be happy to help anytime I possibly can.
All
Okay.
right. All right.
Have a
Thank
good
you,
day.
everybody, for joining us today, and we'll see you next month. Bye, all.